The Massachusetts Republican Party has changed a lot in the era of Donald Trump, embracing the former president and other GOP candidates much further to the right than the likes of Governor Charlie Baker and the old guard of Mass GOP moderates. But one candidate running for the Republican State Committee is beyond the pale, and the Mass GOP formally condemned Lori Kaufman for her reprehensible rhetoric, which includes homophobia, transphobia, and calls for the expulsion of Jewish people. Mass GOP Chair Amy Carnevale joins me now to discuss. Amy, thank you for being here.
Thanks very much for having me, Katie.
I do want to talk to you about kind of the unusual step your party has taken here, both a few months ago in December, urging this candidate not to run for state committee, and then urging people not to vote for her. You said this is part of trying to create an inclusive political environment within the party. What does that look like to you?
So as soon as we learned about this candidate's background and her rhetoric, which, as you pointed out, is really beyond the pale, the party immediately took measures to condemn her remarks and, for the first time that I can remember, actually urged her to withdraw her candidacy. And that resolution passed at a vote of the Republican State Committee unanimously. Further, I have gone further to state that she's not welcome at any party events. We want to do everything we can to disassociate ourselves with this individual. We do not consider her a member of our party, in fact, and we hope that voters will not vote her into office.
So how do you build that kind of environment that's inclusive to different folks, bring more Republicans into the party? I know you've talked about being back in the fight, but also kind of draw a line against extremism and some things that just there's not a place for.
Yeah, so I think it's exactly what we did in December, and again, renewing that call again last week when more comments came to light that were repugnant and, again, beyond the pale for any candidate in Massachusetts. And it's just echoing that message that at the Republican Party of Massachusetts, it is a new day. We do welcome individuals of all backgrounds, and we're actively taking steps. We're working with one of our existing state committee members in Boston, who happens to be a black woman, to reach out to the black community in Boston. So we want to take steps to enlarge our reach and welcome all Massachusetts residents into the party.
And you have the legacy, it's the party of Charlie Baker, of Bill Weld, of Paul Cellucci, of Mitt Romney. But, it's an election year. There's that strong base of support for Donald Trump here and nationally. Who is a Massachusetts Republican in 2024?
It's a good question. Certainly Donald Trump is popular with the grassroots of the party. And looking ahead to Tuesday, I think he'll maintain strong support going into the primary election. That being said, when you think about elections here in the state, whether it be statewide or in local office, Republicans need to run under a banner and talk about messages that resonates with those voters, and often that's a candidate who may have a broader reach and may talk about different issues than we do at the national level. Yeah. And all of those, I would say, are welcome in the Republican Party in Massachusetts.
I think it's been, acknowledged that it tends to be harder for Republicans running in the state level offices here when it is a presidential election year. I know that since the 2016 election, the Republicans have lost seats in the legislature kind of each election. What are you looking to do within the state, I guess, after Tuesday?
Yeah, so after Tuesday, and really leading up to Tuesday, we have an ongoing effort to try to recruit candidates who have either been elected to municipal office to think about maybe stepping up and running for something bigger, or candidates who are well known in their communities to think about running for office. Massachusetts voters have shown that they can split the tickets. It is harder in an election year, in a presidential election year, but we know it can be done. And looking back, you mentioned 2016. Looking back to 2016, we did actually gain one seat in 2016. So it can be done. And looking ahead, we certainly know of opportunities, many in Plymouth County that we're targeting, where we've had Democrats who have been serving in office are no longer running for re-election, and that tends to be the type of opportunity that favors a Republican coming into office.
It does look like there'll be several instances in the state legislature where the incumbent Democrats are not seeking re-election this year, so a lot of open seats. But, you know, one of the things that's interesting about the electoral dynamics in Massachusetts is so many voters are unenrolled or not members of a political party. I think it's the latest figures this week have that around 63%. Mm-hmm. We have a little over 8% for Republicans, around 27% for Democrats. How are you thinking about the voters who are not registered Republicans but might pull a Republican ballot on Tuesday in the primary to make a choice there, whether it's for Donald Trump or for Nikki Haley? Are you doing anything to kind of bring those voters into the fold?
Yeah, good question. So certainly we're well aware that the number of unenrolled voters in Massachusetts outnumbers both Republicans and Democrats. So that's really our target audience. You know, we can typically count on Republicans to vote for Republican candidates, but we really want to target those unenrolled voters who may in some elections vote Republican, may in some elections vote Democratic. So those are, frankly, our target voters. And it's talking about some of the messages that really resonate with those voters, like affordability in Massachusetts, the migrant crisis, which is an ever-ballooning burden on Massachusetts taxpayers with no end in sight, and putting a strain on local municipal budgets. So it's kind of talking about those issues that appeal to those voters in the middle and those unenrolled voters in Massachusetts.
If we head, as it seems we will, to another Trump-Biden rematch, how do you get those pocketbook issues? How do you reach those moderate voters when we have a 2020 rematch, another divisive national election?
Well, you know, I've said since I was elected chair a little over a year ago that I'm going to focus on issues of concern here in Massachusetts. There's not a lot we can do at the state party level to really affect the national dialogue and national issues, other than perhaps the border. And so the border we are seeing more and more because of the Massachusetts policy that really encourages those migrants to come in to our state. That does have a real impact. So we'll continue. And I do think that, again, it's a message that residents are really well aware of. So that's something that we'll continue to talk about. But in terms of the presidential election per se, that's going to play itself out on the national level. And my focus will be here on the state level.
What's the mood heading into Tuesday as we've got the Trump-Haley primary with all the dropped-out candidates who are still on the ballot, and
right,
all your state committee, 80 seats, I think,
80
up on
seats,
the ballot?
Yes. Yeah, so headed into Tuesday, there's a lot of excitement on the Republican side. We have Nikki Haley coming in this weekend for Donald Trump. There's lots of rallies and standouts that'll be happening over the weekend and into Tuesday. And I believe both campaigns, I know the Trump campaign is planning a party on Tuesday night. So there's a lot of excitement and activity going into Tuesday to try to compete not only for Republican votes, but those 63% that we mentioned, the independent voters, and try to get them to cast a Republican ballot. And we are hearing from the Secretary of State's office that the number of absentee ballots or the mail-in ballots requested on the Republican side has exceeded those in past elections. So my guess is we'll see increased activity and increased number of votes on the Republican side, which is a great thing.
Oh, well, that'll be interesting to watch for as we see how it all turns out. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Amy Carnevale, chair of the Massachusetts Republican Party.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you. Judge Gabrielle